the Christian calendar. One may put it in that word or put it in the European calendar. But the fact is that we are facing a millennium which is going to be a millennium of knowledge. The clock always is said turns back even though it moves forward. Similarly, I think time also does turn back, so does history. There was a time when one looks at the old epics when knowledge was the most important thing. But as time passed, what became more important was, if I may use the brawn or the technology of brawn or might. Now we are moving from there, and we've reached a stage because of the information technology revolution that has taken place in the last 3 decades, I would say, where knowledge is going to be our real strength. Fortunately, India is not really weak on that. Many people have wondered why adult franchise has worked in India and not worked in many other countries. Essentially, it is because even a person who is technically illiterate is very well informed and knowledgeable. You go to any village, however poor it may be, nowadays is a little more informed with satellite television, but even there are villages where it's not. For example, you go to Bihar, which is fortunately, unfortunately, one of the bad states in communication. But you go to a village, you will find in the evening, invariably, at least around the tea shop, one newspaper being read, analyzed, torn to shreds, and finally private opinions being formed by people who can't really read. One person reads out and everybody analyzes. It's a mind which is very powerful and dangerous. That's the Indian mind. And that's one of the reasons why the advanced world, if I may use that, or the economically well-to-do world looks upon us with a certain amount of awe and fear. It's not for nothing that they, well, love to compete with us, but would like to compete with us on their terms. That's standard. But I'm more than confident that we are quite capable of telling them we agree with your terms and make sure those terms are ours. That's our capacity. I mean, as I told an old friend, somebody asked me, when you have so many laws in India, why don't they work? I said, every law that has social acceptance works. Every law that is imposed by Parliament as a thought which does not have social acceptance bounces. They said, but what about law enforcing authorities? I said, very true. The moment a bill is made, even before it becomes an act in Parliament, the Indian mind finds a way to go around that law if he doesn't accept it. And he really does achieve it. Well, Carnegie will tell you. I was just talking to him that the insurance, the famous insurance bill, where you talk of privatization of insurance, I am a little worried. I looked at one definition which said what an foreign company is for the purpose of investment. The general decided view among all parties is 26% is what we should allow for an investment in share capital. That's the consensus now. But then I looked at the definition and I got very nervous of how it could be misinterpreted. And somebody very politely told me, we are not talking of Indian investment, we are talking of foreign investment. Don't worry, they won't do what normally we do. So when we draft laws, we have to, in India, look at laws from all possible points of interpretation, because our minds are quite capable of going around it. Similarly, in the power sector, I have noticed something very, very interesting. I have seen people justifying theft of power. And the simple justification is, in the United States, they charge 2 cents, which is approximately 90 paise, for a unit of power in industry. You are charging 10 cents. You are making us uneconomical. because of your political realities, you are subsidizing everybody else, using me and making me uncompetitive. Right. So when you do something which is improper, I don't think you have the right to question me when I do something to ensure that industry which provides employment survives. A very moral justification. Now many of the Delhi induction furnace friends who don't exist on record, I'm not talking of those who exist on record. I know of induction furnaces which don't have an owner, which doesn't have a registration, which doesn't have a place, but still runs and does business. Because everything there is off record. And it consumes power, that's the only thing. Of course there are nothing called meters on the way. That's direct power connectivity. That's called the most intelligent way of functioning, but we have it. They do pay the electricity board officials, I don't deny that. But they don't pay the electricity board. But the fact of the matter is that they do exist. But it's only here we justify. But what everybody fails to understand is that in the United States an average citizen pays domestic tariff of 12 cents. He is actually subsidizing industry. Because in an advanced economy, what is considered to be luxury, that is high consumption of current in domestic form, is considered to be a necessity in industry. So they use one luxury to subsidize what they consider as need. But that is possible only if the income scales are in that form, where profits made out of industry is minimal compared to the average level or comfort living of the citizen. There people bother about conserving electricity because it affects their pocket directly. Here we don't bother because a little more power if you pull, it's just a matter of having a good deal with the local linesman, and that is often done very quickly. He himself comes forward and offers to you. There was a time in telephone, I don't know whether it still exists, but you will get one or two DOT or MTNL employees coming to you and saying, don't worry, pay a fixed amount and we will give you a number by which you can do STD anywhere else in the world. And it gives still goes on, okay. So it gives a good feedback. Now the point is that this is where you come to an understanding that how do you solve this problem? Whole of South Delhi, it doesn't consist of poor people. Vasant Vihar at least is not poor. But there's not, I won't say a single, that will be unfair, there might be some houses. But a large number of them do draw power more than what is their sanctioned load. If you ask them that why don't you increase your load allocation, the deposit is not very much considering your electricity bill. He will turn around and tell me, the linesman told me it's not necessary, he's looked after it. And anyway the blighter comes and collects 50 rupees every month. So what is the harm? But the end of it all, when summer comes, and Malkaniji says it's much more, I'm not too sure of the rating, but I can tell you this much. When summer comes, Vasant Vihar is worst hit because all the transformers trip, the cables get burnt, they have problems because what the system is designed to take is what is declared. You will be surprised. It is not the Juggi Jhopdis which are the major problem for DESU. The officials will go on telling it's Juggi Jhopdi because it's very convenient for them to say so. We did an analysis and found 4% of the current is stolen by Juggi Jhopdis. Statistically found to be correct by measuring load. The balance of almost 24% is theft by the haves, whether they are living in luxurious flats or triple story or quadruple story buildings or they are living in whatever luxury. They are the largest consumers of what we call T&D losses. Now in technical terms, T&D losses is transmission and distribution losses. In my language, I have defined it as theft and dacoity losses. Theft is small amount, dacoity is large amount, that's about it. So many of the smelting industries which I was talking about, or foundry, whichever term you may use, which don't exist on record, are what I call dacoity. And small meter adjusters, at one time, I don't know, socially it was a usual topic of conversation in Delhi social gatherings. Do you know that fellow gave me a small magnet which I put at the back of the meter slowed down. It's great fun, you must try it. Now while he's talking, he is drinking, of course, scotch. I mean, he can afford to pay that bill with just a couple of his evenings' account. But he does it more than for actual necessity, for the thrill of being able to steal power. Or, match his wits against somebody else. Not realizing that we are reaching a stage today where the outstanding of all the SEBs in India is in the region of 29,000 crores. Not a small figure. 29,000 crores is the outstanding. They need to pay either to coal or to railways or central power undertakings. Most of them are in what would have been called BFIR quality. They need reconstruction. Essentially because they are not able to pick up their revenues. It is not because, I repeat, of political policies of giving free power. That is another excuse to cover up. Yes, when you give free power, the problem is, it's very easy accounting. The SEB would invariably say, where they've given 15% of their power to agriculture, that it is actually 25%. So that 10% of this unaccounted deals which they've had is adjusted, and the state government is asked to subsidize it. So what all I'm trying to communicate is the power sector has got riddled with the worst form of malice and a disease which is so dangerous. That is a self-serving, acceptable crime. Stealing power is no longer considered to be a societally untouchable crime. Because you're stealing it from government, which ultimately is me, it's from one pocket to another pocket, what does it matter? I think we need to change that attitude. I often said jokingly that in a republic, the real sovereign is the citizen. He is the king. And kings don't pay bills, taxes and things like that. So they can avoid it. I don't know whether my senior leaders who are here agree. But there is this approach. Government dues, we don't think at least consciously, is something we have to pay for our own well-being. That concept is gone. Government dues has become an unnecessary evil. Do you know where it is affecting us most? It is not visible still in Delhi. Because Delhi municipality and Delhi Municipal Corporation are heavily subsidized from budgets. Somebody else pays taxes for it. But if you come to the smaller municipal corporations in what I call the semi-urban areas, those corporations are all broke because people are not willing to pay taxes. Normal service taxes, like they won't pay land tax, property tax, water cess and power bills. So these corporations which provide services slowly have dried up. The quality of services have dropped. People have started suffering.